Hello everyone, and welcome to the very first video of Comic Book Corner. Since this is the very first video in this playlist, I only find it fitting to mark the occasion with the beginning of Batman himself. The story, Batman Year 1, was published by DC Comics from February until May of 1987. It was divided into 4 parts which covered Batman issues 404, 405, 406 and 407. The story was written by Frank Miller, who is also famous for other titles such as Sin City and The Dark Knight Returns. The story's artist was David Mazzucchelli, the colorist was Richmond Lewis, and the editor was Dennis O'Neil. The characters that are involved in the story are as follows: Bruce Wayne / Batman, as you can't have a Batman story without either one. Alfred Pennyworth, Detective James aka Jim Gordon, with his wife Barbara and their newborn son James Jr. Carmine the Roman Falcone, the head of the Falcone crime syndicate. Falcone's nephew Johnny Vitti, GCPD Police Commissioner Loeb, GCPD Detective Flass, who serves as one of Loeb's crooked employees, GCPD SWAT team leader Brandon, another corrupt character within the force, GCPD Detective Sarah Essen, one of the few good cops in the GCPD, Assistant District Attorney Harvey Dent, a good man trying to bring down crime in the city, Holly Kyle and her big sister Selina Kyle, who later becomes Catwoman. Now, as suggested by the title, this story shows Batman over the course of his first year as a crime fighter. We see Bruce Wayne's return to Gotham City and his becoming of the Batman. That is the simplest way to describe this story. But now I will go into a bit more detail by describing a chronological sequence of events that take place in this story, which may contain major plot spoilers. So if you've not read the story or seen the animated movie, I suggest that you stop this video now. As I have already said, this story shows the return of Bruce Wayne after having disappeared for about 18 years, in which he has trained and prepared himself to commence his war on crime, after the brutal murder of his parents in front of him, aged 8, in Crime Alley. Almost simultaneously, Detective James Gordon moves to Gotham City with his pregnant wife Barbara, so that he can work for the GCPD. Upon arrival, the two iconic characters find that the city is corrupt within both the police force and the public, with crooked police officials working with crime bosses. Bruce Wayne trains himself further and decides to locate crime on small levels. He then sets out on his first recon mission, while Gordon fights the corruption within the GCPD and out on the streets. On March 11, Gordon is attacked by Flass and other masked members of the force, as they're taking a major dislike to his honest cop approach. But Gordon later finds Flass and, simply put, hands him his ass, leaving him naked and handcuffed in the snow. At the same time, Bruce, being disguised of course, has made his way home after his first recon mission went sour, which resulted in a fight between himself, local prostitutes, which include Selina Kyle and Holly Kyle, being shot and arrested, but escaping with finesse, all things considered. He sat in an armchair, bleeding, staring at a bust of his father, while remembering the night of his parents' murder, contemplating death and his failure, before being greeted by a bat, which crashed in through the window. At this moment, Bruce Wayne becomes Batman. The newly established vigilante sets out at nighttime and stops small crimes, before moving on to drug busts and other news-breaking activities. After Batman gate-crashed a meet-up at the Falcone home on May 19th, in which Commissioner Loeb was socializing with Gotham's lowest, the crooked commissioner ordered that Batman be caught. Batman later returned to Falcone on June 5th, which resulted in the crime boss being left humiliated. These events ultimately led to a confrontation between the Batman and a bloodthirsty SWAT team in an abandoned building, which was led by Brandon. Needless to say, Batman non-lethally dispatched all combatants and escaped under a shroud of bats. Detective Essen, a member of staff at the GCPD, engages with Gordon in a brief affair, which is later used by Commissioner Loeb as blackmail. However, Gordon later tells his wife about the affair after interviewing Bruce Wayne as a possible suspect for being the Batman on September 25th. On November 2nd, we see Selina Kyle become Catwoman, who later attempts to steal from the Falcone penthouse, leading to a confrontation between herself, Falcone, and his thugs, as well as his nephew, Johnny Vitti. But Batman was there to stop the fight, and mysteriously left afterwards. Before Catwoman left, however, she decided to leave Falcone with the scar that we forever see on his face. After Gordon repeatedly angered Loeb, we find that Carmine Falcone has sent his nephew to kidnap Gordon's newborn son, James Jr. This battle and chase ultimately leads us to a fight along a bridge, where James Jr. falls, almost to his death, but is rescued just in time by Bruce Wayne, who is in civilian attire. Although James Gordon explains that he is practically blind without his glasses, which he did lose during the fight with Johnny, Bruce Wayne then leaves the scene before the police arrive. The story finishes with Flass giving his confession in court, which results in Loeb being sent to prison, and Gordon being made captain. Gordon provides the audience with a narrative mentioning the rising of a new threat to the city, the Joker, and leaving readers aware that he has forged a new alliance with the Batman. In terms of continuity, this story is considered the definitive origin story of Batman in the mainstream DC narrative. However, there is an alternate origin story for the Caped Crusader in Batman Earth 1, which takes place on an alternate planet Earth if you follow the DC Multiverse story arc. For anyone who may want to know my opinions and thoughts on this story, I believe that it's very difficult to capture the essence of an already well-established and iconic character in his or her early days. However, I truly believe that Batman Year One provides a good portrayal of Batman and his origins. The story was fantastic to read and very true to the time in which it was written. I chose to buy the graphic novel as I prefer to have all of the stories collected and in chronological order. The animated movie is also very true to the comic book story, as I've watched it multiple times and have not seen one fact or panel omitted from the story whatsoever. For those of you who may be interested, I've linked the graphic novel and the DVD for the UK and US versions of the Amazon website in the description below. Although I truly enjoyed this story, I would really like to see a reboot of Batman's origins in terms of the mainstream DC story arc, and not a part of the New 52, Convergence, or any spin-off storyline whatsoever. I can cover those concerns in a later video. A reboot that stays true to and abides heavily by Year One, but gives us a Batman who has more assets, such as upgraded technology, as Bruce Wayne is a millionaire. And I know that this story takes place in Batman's early days, but it is spread over the course of a year, which to me is ample time to prepare physically, mentally, and strategically. For example, instead of stealing a police motorcycle during his getaway from the SWAT team, he could at least have access to a prototype vehicle of sorts, which would in no way break continuity for those of us who are somewhat OCD about that stuff. Thank you all for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any suggestions for other titles that I could do next time, then leave a comment in the section below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, goodbye.